So kia ora tātou, ngā mihi nui. Welcome to all our participants in New Zealand and in India this evening, and for you in India this morning, or possibly earlier today anyway, or possibly yesterday. I've got really no idea. My name is Pattrick Smellie. I'm the editor of BusinessDesk, a New Zealand business and economic news service with obviously a limited understanding of time zones. I've been chosen because I know nothing about cricket and therefore there will be no diplomatic incidents involving that issue. The last time the India-New Zealand Business Council was able to hold this summit was in 2019, 2 years ago, or 1 pre-C, as we may now call it, being 1 year before COVID-19 changed all of our lives forever, everywhere. Now we're in year 1 post-C, looking into a future that's far less certain than it seemed to be 2 years ago. We've got more than 100 people in the room here tonight at the Trust Centre in Auckland. There are another 300 or so participants joining us in the first ever hybrid conference based all around India and in other parts of New Zealand and the world. I just wanted to say to our participants in India, can I send you our warmest wishes and hopes that the pandemic, which we know has been raging in your cities, towns in recent months, will continue to be brought under control, and our sincere condolences for those of you who have lost friends and loved ones to COVID-19. We have been more fortunate in New Zealand, thanks in part to our relative isolation, which gave our government more time to prepare than most. However, and there's always a however, today is not the best day to be boasting about that one. I need to tell you that unfortunately the Prime Minister has decreed that no ministers or MPs should travel today, and a similar travel ban has been placed on many public servants. That has affected particularly the involvement of the Foreign Minister, who will be beaming in thanks to the fact that we have a hybrid conference from Wellington, but who unfortunately can't be with us in person tonight thanks to the partial soft lockdown that has been announced for Wellington, in which I managed to escape by some unknown means this morning. So firstly, just a few housekeeping things. The first thing is, you've all got a QR code on your table for COVID-19 tracing purposes. If you haven't done it, please do. I think today's events really make it clear as to why you need to keep doing this. We all need to keep doing this. Secondly, in the case of need to evacuate the venue, there are exits clearly located all around the perimeter of the room, apart from behind me. And should we need to evacuate, our evacuation points are either the car park or the playing field, and we'll be escorted from here by Trust Arena staff who will guide you if should that happen. Less gloomily, the restrooms are appointed on both sides of the room here. If you want to ask any questions of our panellists as we go through the evening, there will be roving microphones in the room here. And for anybody who's online, there's a chat box which you may need to open on the right-hand side of your screen, which will allow you to type in questions, which then will be transmitted by the magic of the internet and electricity to me. Finally, you can tag us in media posts on Twitter and Facebook with @INZBC, or use the hashtag on Twitter of hashtag INZBC Summit 2021. I'm afraid if you're on LinkedIn, where things are always a bit more old school, you'll need to use the full name, India-New Zealand Business Council. Now, so the housekeeping out of the way, I'd like to invite Dr. Pushpa Wood, the head of the Wellington chapter of the INZBC, to formally bless this event as we begin the formal proceedings.
Namaste, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. I'm going to do a karakia tematanga first, which can be used for starting the day or starting the event. And the second one will be just a quick blessing from our ancient culture, Sanskrit. Kia hora te marino, kia whakapapa pōna mu te moana. Hei hurarahi mā tātou i te rangi nei. Aroha ato, aroha mai, tātou i a tātou katoa. Tukua te wairua, kia rere, ki ngā tāmau taumata, hei ārahi i a tātou whai e ngā tikanga a rātou mā. Kia mau, kia ita, kia kore ai e ngāro, kia pupuri, kia whakamaua, kia tina, hui e, tai ki e. May peace be widespread, may the sea be like greenstone, a pathway for us all today. Caring for one another with respect and humility to all. Allow one's spirit to exercise its potential to guide us in our work. How appropriate it is. And the second one, the Sanskrit one, is even more appropriate considering what's happening in my hometown. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayah, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukh bhag bhavet. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. May all be happy, may all be free from illness, may all see what is auspicious, may no one suffer. Be peace upon us all.
Thank you, Pushpa. It's now my great pleasure to welcome to the stage the Chair of the India-New Zealand Business Council, Sameer Handa, to formally open the summit.
I'll start with the mihi. He honore, he kororia, he manga rongo ki te mata o te whenua, he whakaaro ki nā tangia kato, amine. Ko te mihi tuatahi ki te atua, nana nei nā mia katoa ai hanga, I mihi ana ki e koe I te kaika rakia moto kaha, ki te whaka whetia ki a mato, tēnā koe, tēnā koe, tēnā koe. Ko te mihi ki te kingi Māori, me te whare kahui ariki, rire, rire hau, pai mar rire. Ki te hunga mate, haere, haere, haere atura. Ki nā hunga ora, tēnā koto, tēnā koto, tēnā koto katoa. Kia ora ano tātoa katoa. Kia ora, namaste, good evening. As the Black Caps and the Indian cricket team battle it out for the ICC World Test Championship, I revel in the future that is taking shape before our eyes. As I watched the match unfold, I applauded in the sense of camaraderie I observed between the two teams. I cheered their humility towards each other that was edged by a sense of arrogance, as only the two best cricket teams in the world can showcase. And I celebrated in the perfect example of the Kiwi-Indian relationship between Kane Williamson and Virat Kohli, as they shook each other's hand with mutual respect and admiration. And I couldn't help but draw a parallel off the field into the world of business, where we have witnessed similar success by many Kiwi businesses in India due to these exact shared values and practices. It is in this shared culture that we need to rejoice, and it is in this shared success that we need to build the foundation of a fruitful future. Kia ora everyone, and welcome to the first ever hybrid summit brought to you by the India-New Zealand Business Council. As the chairman of the council, it's my absolute delight to welcome you to this very important discussion on the new decade of action. I'd like to acknowledge our New Zealand Minister for Foreign Affairs, Honorable Nia Mahuta, who will shortly deliver the keynote address. I would also like to welcome Indian High Commissioner to New Zealand, His Excellency Muktesh Pardeshi ji, Meng Foon, Race Relations Commissioner, he is amongst us. Dr. Gaurav Sharma, Member of Parliament for Hamilton West. Mr. Bhav Dillon, Honorary Consul of India in Auckland. And Reno Tiri Tene, MP for Tetai Tonga. And former Member of Parliaments, Mr. Bakshi and Mr. Bindra, and other board members of the Council. I would like to extend a very warm welcome to all of you for joining us here physically at the Trust Arena in Auckland and online from across India, New Zealand, and other countries. Over the past year, our Council has been working diligently to make this summit a reality as we battled a global pandemic. As a Council, we knew that it was time to bring leaders of India and New Zealand businesses on a single platform to restart this conversation. We know that if we are going to grow and nurture the India-New Zealand bilateral relationship in this new normal, the time is now. Over the past few months, INZBC has held various dialogues with ministries of both the governments to ensure that voices of both Kiwi and Indian businesses are heard. As a Council, we have a rich 33 years of history of serving our members and bringing a level perspective in time of need. The impact of our work aids in decision-making at the policy level, not only in New Zealand, but also in India. It is our connections, networks, and relationships that enable us to bring experienced knowledge to our member businesses and stakeholders. When we launched the summit in 2014, our idea was to create a platform for Kiwi businesses to have a voice in New Zealand's relationship with India. The INZBC Summit, held every year, is a key event that shapes the dialogue of the New Zealand and India relationship. We are the only summit that brings together key stakeholders from both the countries to have tangible dialogue that actually shifts the dial. And there is no doubt that in 2021 and the coming years, we'll need to have such dialogues that will help us overcome new and daunting challenges as the world recovers and settles into a new normal. New Zealand has been one of the greatest success stories in managing the pandemic and leading the economy towards an early recovery in 2021. India's experience with the pandemic stands in contrast as the country withstood the first wave reasonably well, but faced a devastating tragedy during the second wave. Now, due to a robust vaccination drive, India is starting to bring the second wave of pandemic under control. From a business perspective, it is reported that India attracted the highest ever foreign direct investment worth $82 billion during the pandemic-ridden year, which is 10% higher than the previous financial year. According to economists, the pandemic has prompted a diversification of global supply chain for many businesses. While bilateral economic relations have grown significantly since we started them in 1952, the pandemic and its associated challenges have prompted a need to rethink this relationship beyond trade flows and reframe the dialogue to strategically think beyond market access. Over the next 2 days, you will hear from ministers, diplomats, business leaders, government and industry bodies, experts and academics on the various issues of diplomacy and trade that affect this new world order. The summit will provide a deeper and more meaningful dialogue by moving the conversation away from the FTA to finding new innovative ways of collaboration on diplomacy and trade. Over these 2 days, that 3 hours today and 3 hours tomorrow, will bring you perspective from 37 speakers, 37 leaders and experts who are instrumental in shaping the New Zealand-India relationship. Pleased to report that our first ever hybrid summit has over 300 people joining us online from across India, New Zealand, and other countries. The depth of what the team has been able to achieve is mind-boggling, and I, for one, cannot wait to get into the discussion. None of this would have been possible without our strategic partners, Westpac, HCL, Ministry for Foreign Affairs and Trade, High Commission of India. I would like to acknowledge our sponsors and partners, NZTE, Zespri, Asia New Zealand Foundation, Relab, Baker Tilly, Incredible India, Martin Jenkins, CII, FICCI, and the Trust Arena where we all are seated. In closing, I would like to mention a Maori proverb, ka mua ka muri, which means the idea that we should look to the past to inform the future. In the middle of this chaos and uncertainty, let us rethink on the life we want to build for ourselves. We are a reasonably short history of New Zealand. We had our share of ups and downs, triumphs and successes. Let us work towards building a new normal that we want, a world that will help us appreciate our strengths, where we prioritize our health, our well-being, our people, our culture, and our relationships, just like the one created by the India and New Zealand cricket team on the field. Namihi. Thank you.
Thank you, Sameer. We're honoured tonight to have the presence of cabinet ministers of both New Zealand and India to address us, although, as I've already indicated, unfortunately, Nanaia Mahuta, the New Zealand Foreign Minister, is stuck in Wellington this evening. However, she will address us shortly by video link, and she will be followed by the Indian Minister of State for External Affairs, the Honourable Sri V. Muralidharan. You'll note that Minister Muralidharan differs from the Minister printed in your programme. To introduce Minister Mahuta, also virtually from the New Zealand Parliament, is Dr. Gaurav Sharma, the Member of Parliament for Hamilton West, to introduce, in fact, both of our speakers. Dr. Sharma.
Inga mana inga reo inga rao rangatirama, tena koto, tena tatu katoa. Ko inga Himalayas ke India oku onga tuatahi. Ingari ko pirongia te monga inainai. Ko Satluj toku awa tuatahi. Ingari ko Waikato te awa inainai. Ke Frankton kirikiriroa toku kainga inainai. Ko Sharma toku wano. Ko Gaurav toku ingoa. Ko au te mema paramata mo kirikiriroa ki te uru. Noku te honore te tu kia mua ia koto. Norera tena koto, tena koto, tena koto katoa. नमस्कार देवियों सज्जनों, आप सभी का मेरी तरफ से बहुत बहुत स्वागत। आज मैं और मिनिस्टर ननाया महूता और रिनो टिरकटाने सब आपके पास आने वाले थे, लेकिन जैसे कि आप जानते हैं अलर्ट लेवल 2 के कारण हम सबको अब वेलिंगटन तक ही सीमित रखा गया है। तो मैं सबको पहले तो ये कहना चाहूँगा ऑर्गेनाइजर्स को कि इतने छोटे से वक्त में आपने जो ये बदलाव लाया है कि एक फिजिकल समिट को आपने वर्चुअल समिट में कन्वर्ट किया है, just that's very applaudable. I just want to acknowledge a few people before I give a bit of a presentation. From our side, Honourable Nanaia Mahuta, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, also Sri Muralidharanji, who is virtually connecting with us from India, Mr. Rino Tirakatane, the Undersecretary for Trade as well as Oceans and Fisheries, Muktesh Pradeshiji, the High Commissioner of India, Bhav Dhillonji, the Honorary Consul General of India, Sameer Handa ji, the President of INZBC, who's recently been awarded the Member of New Zealand Order of Merit, Earl Rotterdam, the Treasurer of INZBC, Gary Gupta, who's the Secretary of INZBC, and all the other dignitaries present. Welcome and thank you for having me for this event as well. While I was reflecting on this presentation in terms of introducing the Honourable Minister, I was thinking about the PPH that I'd written for this event and trying to find a connection between India and New Zealand, because a lot of our cultures are quite similar. Whakapapa is quite important in Māori culture. Your genealogy is quite important in Māori culture. And it's the same in Indian culture as well, where people often talk about their grandparents, their villages, where they came from. And I shared a little bit of that with you guys before. But I would request the organizers to please start the PowerPoint presentation that I've got for you guys. and I just wanted to connect a few themes here between India and New Zealand. So hopefully at your end, you're looking at a house which has a red roof. And this is a photograph I took in 2017. For those of you who are not very well versed with India, this is taken in Shimla, which used to be the British capital during the summer months. Now, this is a really interesting house because in this house used to live a gentleman who ended up becoming the first Earl of Auckland, George Eden. In 1840, when William Hobson, the Governor General of the first Governor General of New Zealand, established a colony in Auckland, or rather in Tamaki Makaurau, he decided to name it Auckland after this gentleman who lived in this house in Shimla in India. So we go on to the third slide. You'll see the Governor General's house in Auckland in 1840. So the New Zealand-India relationships, go back that long ago when the city of Auckland was named after Lord Auckland, who was the Governor General of India between 1836 and 1842. Now, the slide after that will show you Auckland Grammar in 1934. And I bring this up because in this slide somewhere, you'll find there is Sir Edmund Hillary. And I bring this up because when I moved to New Zealand, I had the chance of going to Auckland Grammar, and Sir Edmund Hillary came to school once to talk to the old students. And Sir Ed was the High Commissioner of New Zealand to India and Nepal. And if we move another slide up, you'll see a photograph of Peter Hillary, who is the son of Sir Edmund Hillary, who I hosted in Parliament just earlier this month because we hosted Nepal Day in India. So again, there's a lot of connections between India and New Zealand, and I'm just sort of trying to weave this through my own story and my own journey. The photograph after that, the slide after that, will show you All India Institute of Medical Sciences in Delhi in 2017. And for those of you who can't read the actual plaque, it says the Honourable Minister J.T. Watts of New Zealand has donated in 1952 £1 million for the establishment of All India Institute of Medical Sciences, which after independence became the first premier institute of India. And again, New Zealand had a lot of role to play in that relationship way back in 1952. The slide after that, and this is the one I think the minister hasn't seen yet. This is the slide from 2014. And I bring this up because as I introduce the minister to you, I was a 20-something-year-old doctor in Auckland, and I was invited to go to a husting, a Labour Party leadership husting. And this is at the Mahatma Gandhi Centre, again, bringing that connection with India and New Zealand. And at that husting, you could see there's multiple people sitting there, Andrew Little, David Parker, Grant Robertson, Nanai Mahuta. And this is the first time I heard Nanai speak. And I was very impressed. She was, while everybody else was talking about policy, she was able to talk to a 20-year-old doctor and pitch her, story. And I unashamedly tell everybody that I voted for Nanaya at that point to be the leader of the party. And at that point in 2014, I never thought that if we move to the next slide, which is taken in 2020, that I would be actually running in an election with Nanaya. So Nanaya's electorate and my electorate overlap, the Maori electorate and the general electorate of Hamilton West and Hauraki Waikato. And over the years, I've had the pleasure of working with Nanaya as a candidate, as an MP, and now as a minister as well. And if we move to our final slide. So this just goes to show the mana the minister has got across the world. And I just want to say, as the Minister of Foreign Affairs and local government, there's a lot of connection there where India and New Zealand can leverage our future trade relationship. And we're really honored today that the minister is here to start the conversation rolling, which has been going on for quite a while. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Minister Nanai Mahuta.